welcome to this edition of Border Report Live. My name is Rudy Mideles, and I am your host here in Harlingen, Texas, in the Rio Grande Valley of Deep South Texas. In just a little bit, joining me on the program, we're going to have our El Paso correspondent, Julian Resendez, to talk about a couple different things, but he's got a special guest on, a special guest that's going to discuss many of the issues going on with cartels on the other side of the border. We're looking forward to that, and we're also going to check in with him in just a moment on these headlines on a new issue that is popping up with fake IDs, or rather an issue that has popped up with fake IDs, I should say. But first, let's take a look at some of the other stories making headlines across the border, starting with Chicago. Illinois and Chicago political leaders are raising alarms over President Donald Trump's threat to deploy National Guard troops to the city. Earlier this week, Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker said, quote, "There is no emergency in Chicago that calls for armed military intervention. There is no insurrection," end quote. Federal immigration enforcement agencies are preparing to descend on Chicago next week as part of a crackdown on immigration. This will be similar to the operations in Los Angeles and Washington, D.C. The White House officials did confirm to our partners at News Nation. This morning, Border Czar Tom Homan said, quote, "A large contingent of ICE officers would be sent to Chicago, but he would not confirm how many." Homan said federal agencies would also target New York City, Portland, and other Democratic-led cities after Labor Day. And staying in Chicago, Homan also confirmed that the U.S. Naval Station Great Lakes, that's where Navy recruits actually go to do their basic training, located near the Illinois-Wisconsin border, would be used as a hub for ICE agents. The Trump administration has begun talks on housing ICE agents at the naval base to support immigration enforcement efforts in Chicago. The Chicago Sun-Times has reported that the 1,600-acre naval base also has been approached about housing National Guard troops as part of President Trump's plan to send troops to Chicago. A spokesman for the base said they have not received any official requests to support the troops. In other news, the federal government seized 2 internet domains and a blog being used to sell fake IDs, including bogus New Mexico driver's licenses. In 2022, they began investigating a company called Verif.Tools, allegedly involved in a conspiracy to steal cryptocurrency accounts. The Netherlands-based company allegedly offered to make fake passports, driver's licenses, and other forms of ID for as little as $8.99. And I want to bring in our El Paso correspondent, Julian Resendez. Now, Julian, you've been following this situation. Fill us in on the details here.
Rudy, everybody talks about the dark web and the things that you can get in the dark web that are illegal. In this case, the U.S. Attorney's Office this morning alerted us to a joint investigation, the conclusion of a joint investigation between themselves and the government of the Netherlands. And it has to do with a group of people, a gang, if you would, who was operating this website under various URLs or domains. And they were pretty much offering fake identifications for various purposes, but primarily for people who wanted to engage in illegal activities such as bank fraud or phishing or just fraudulent representation. Also, there were some cases that involved just minors just wanting to get an ID so they could get to a bar. So this was pretty sweeping. I'm told that it's a massive operation with profits estimated in the millions of dollars. And that there was a raid on August 27th that precipitated all this. It happened in the city of Amsterdam, and it resulted in the seizure of 2 hard servers, as well as multiple virtual servers with the information of all these people across the world, including the United States, who had approached this company and had paid for these fake documents. It's a sweeping investigation that got close to home here in New Mexico when the FBI discovered, whoa, there's some. They're also manufacturing driver's licenses with the state of New Mexico logo and characteristics. Also, as part of the investigation, the authorities in the Netherlands discovered that there was like an artificial, an AI type of software there to manufacture false passports, and the customer had the choice of country. In one of the images that we have, you can see the option for getting a Mexican passport, which obviously would also impact the border.
Yeah, interesting stuff. Now, you did mention that they found a lot of folks had been using this website, American citizens. Was there any talk about maybe prosecuting those individuals or trying to investigate what exactly they were getting these fake documents for?
Yeah, absolutely. The investigation, since it's based in the Netherlands, is being led by Dutch police, and they're saying now that we have the servers, now that we have the information, we're going to identify the individuals. It might take some time because,
Hmm.
as it is with anything based on the internet, you don't have to be physically present in one place to affect your activities.
Mhm. All right. Well, thank you so much for your reporting on this, Julian. And Julian, I'm actually going to turn the controls over to you now because you have a very special guest joining us in your studio today out in El Paso. So I'll go ahead and bring y'all up and let you go ahead and introduce him.
Thank you, Rudy. Yeah, for the past few years here at Border Report, we've been relying on a number of trusted sources and individuals. I met Mr. Victor Manjares at UT El Paso when he was running one of the programs there, and he's a former U.S. Border Patrol sector chief here, formerly in El Paso, and also formerly in Arizona. He has been one of my most trusted sources when it comes to information about the cartels, about the movement of immigration, and how organized criminal groups really have come to take over and control this activity. So I'm going to toss to Mr. Manjares so he can tell us a little bit about himself.
Julian, thank you very much. As you stated, I spent a career with the U.S. Border Patrol. Like I served from San Diego to Southern Arizona to here in El Paso, and probably the greatest growth was when I was at the Border Patrol headquarters as the National Strategic Planner for the Border Patrol. So it's a pleasure being here today.
Thank you, sir. What can you tell us? I'd like to talk about this topic right now because the president of Mexico just addressed it. The Trump administration is kind of leaking this information. There's a lot of chatter right now in federal circles about the possibility of the U.S. Special Forces, U.S. military taking direct action against cartel leaders in Mexico. Before I toss to you, Mr. Manjares, I'd like to play uh, a video from the president of Mexico who was asked about this week, and this was her response.
Do you think President Trump could bomb cartels in Mexican territory?
No. México es un país libre, independiente y soberano.
No, Mexico is an independent sovereign country. No foreign government would dare to violate our sovereignty. It's not like before. Mexico is too strong because of our people, because of our representative people's government. If they try, remember our national anthem. Heaven has given you a soldier in every son.
México tiene mucha fuerza.
That's a pretty strong rebuke from the president of Mexico. Now, Mr. Manjares, I'd like to ask you, but she's in an extraordinary position in which she is being pressed by the Trump administration to do something about all these people in her country who are participating in the fentanyl trade and now in the cocaine trade as well as the methamphetamine trade, and conspiring to bring all those drugs to the U.S. On the other hand, she has to respond to her people. And her people, every Mexican child who goes to school is taught about the U.S. invasion of Mexico of 1846 to 1848 that resulted in the loss of half of Mexico's territory. So let me ask you, Mr. Manjares, how far do you think we can go really with this initiative in the U.S. of going after cartel leaders in Mexico? Tell us all about it.
Absolutely. I also think there's a third piece to that because you spoke about the pressures, right? The national anthem, the children being taught this, but there's also that pressure of inheriting, several presidential administrations of Mexico who really failed to do anything about the cartels. So there's that internal pressure itself because we often think of the cartels having an impact on the United States, but it's having a detrimental impact also within the citizens of Mexico from direct violence, residual violence on that. So I think that there's a real possibility, but I think it's more of a pressure to be placed on the government of Mexico. You exert enough pressure, and we've seen the president do this, puts pressure, it causes people to react, causes people to take some kind of action. And I think we've seen that from the government of Mexico. I think in her administration, she's been pretty darn responsive on that, sending National Guard troops, looking internally how they do things, agreeing to certain things on that. And so it doesn't allow the United States government a reason to continue with that process, but the pressure stays.
Yes, I'd like to ask you, Mr. Majares. I understand we're going to take a short break, but I'd like to ask you when we come back precisely about what Mexico already has done. I don't think a lot of people are aware of what the Sheinbaum administration has allowed the U.S. to do as far as training, as far as presence. We're even going to talk about U.S. spy drones flying over Mexico City or near Mexico City when we come back.
Right, and you just heard it there. We're going to continue this conversation, and Border Report Live is back in 1 minute. Welcome back. My name is Rudy Mideles here in Harlingen, Texas, but I'm going to send it right over to Julian Resendez in El Paso.
Thank you, Rudy. Earlier this year, we saw the Trump administration announce some very severe economic sanctions in the form of tariffs to Mexico. And one of the threats, one of the reasons for those tariffs was that President Trump wanted Mexico to do something about the massive fentanyl trafficking in the U.S. in the past few years, as well as the continuous trafficking or passing through of migrants to the country. Now, since then, and this is what I'd like to talk to my guest, Mr. Victor Majares, former Border Patrol Chief, Sector Chief here in El Paso and Tucson, that elicited a response from the President of Mexico of sending 10,000 National Guard troops to the U.S.-Mexico border to patrol the border. But there have been other measures since in which Mexico has allowed U.S. troops to come in. They came in for a training exercise, a highly publicized training exercise, disaster training here in Juarez. But they also there was also a group of U.S. Green Berets who went to Chiapas, was allowed to travel to the southern state of Chiapas in Mexico, and they conducted some special Mexican Special Forces training over there. Mr. Majares, I'd like to ask you, can you tell us about what we're seeing as far as Mexico, what Mexico is allowing the U.S. to do in this joint fight against the cartels?
Absolutely. So the examples you cited from National Guardsmen to the training exercises on that is really nothing new. We've seen these initiatives occur over the last 15, 20 years. On that, I mean, you can go back a little further back. It started with the Merida Initiative that had the 4 pillars, and it talked about bringing equipment, training, rule of law, things of that nature. And so you're seeing this, I would call this a Merida Initiative kind of on steroids, so to speak. On that, so it's seen the National Guardsmen being deployed to the northern border from the government of Mexico. The last time you saw the military personnel moved up like that, it was during the 2007, 2008 with the cartel wars here in Juarez. The difference, though, the focus isn't in the city of Juarez. It is the protection of the northern border of Mexico on that, which I think is pretty significant. And having the training exercises, again, the last 35, 40 years, that's really not anything different. Now, the frequency might be at a faster rate, and that might be due to the direct pressure of terrorists and the threats of having forces come up. But let's not forget, though, something that's not spoken of often, it's the sharing of intelligence, and that allowing others to benefit from our intelligence gathering techniques, systems, and processes. I'll give you a great example. In 2010, when Juarez was really in the grips of the cartels, they needed intelligence assistance. So on behalf of a request by the Mexican government, they had drones flying over Juarez, collecting data and information that was being directly fed into Mexican law enforcement and the military to actually pinpoint cartel members on that. So I can't imagine that that's not happening now. If it was happening back then, if we're looking at what's going on now, it is a great way to be cooperative and be strong for your own country, right? Saying that you're not allowing Mexican or American troops to come to your country to do your job on that, but and at the same time satisfying the requirement or the request by the U.S. government to try to do something on that. I think you're seeing an impact on that now.
Yes. Speaking of drones, we've had reports earlier this year of American spy drones flying over the coast of Culiacan, the state where the Sinaloa cartel is based. I'm sorry, that's Sinaloa. Yeah, we've seen drones flying off the coast of Sinaloa. And recently, very recently, we got reports of American drones flying in the vicinity of Mexico City as well. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, it's again, those aren't done without the approval, and usually upon the request of the Mexican government to do that. And that's just simply because the ability and the technology that's available to the U.S. We make great investments in terms of our intelligence gathering apparatus and intelligence community, that's usually tied into the military, but there's other agencies involved with it, the DEA, for example. And so that is not surprising. On that, what it is surprising that it is better known or better known now than it was before.
If we're not going to see U.S. missile strikes on cartel leaders, can you kind of tell us what we can expect to see as far as U.S.-Mexico law enforcement cooperation against the cartels in the coming weeks or months?
I see the continuation of the training. It wouldn't surprise me if there's advisors along with the strike groups that come in. And I mean advisors, it's actually Mexican government officials carrying out the action, but these advisors on the ground might be intel analysts, might be operational analysts that can control technology that's not on the hands of the Mexican government to direct these operations. And the key on that is, one is to be effective, right? To go after your named targets, because they normally don't go in there hoping to get someone. They have a good idea someone's located there, and they have good intelligence to do that, and they want to do that safely as possible, not only for the law enforcement military personnel doing this, but the surrounding public. If you start seeing Mexican public citizens getting injured in these operations, then I think that's when it becomes problematic for the government of Mexico and the president to kind of stop this.
Yeah, finally, on this topic, Mr. Manjares, do you, with all this cooperation and all this pressure from the U.S., do you foresee some major action in coming weeks against top cartel leaders, maybe Mencho, the leader of the Jalisco cartel, or the remaining sons of Chapo Guzman in Sinaloa?
I think if given all the leadership that's out there, I think the primary target or the most desirable target is the Jalisco cartel, Jalisco Generation Cartel. As you know, they're just about every state of Mexico, in most states, if not all of them. They're the most violent. They're the most predatory. And then they're the ones that are pushing the most narcotics. And quite frankly, they control most of the criminal enterprise in Mexico. And so it would not surprise me on that, but I don't see direct action by the government, U.S. government. I think it's going to be an advisor-led role, an intelligence-led role, and using technology.
All right. Rudy, we're going to take another break in a little while. When we come back, we're going to talk about the other aspect of U.S.-Mexico law enforcement relations, and that is what's happening with migration, with the cartel involvement in migration. But I wanted to know if you, Rudy, have any questions for our guest today?
I've got lots of questions, but I'll let you get through yours first, and we'll do those after the break. We are going to continue our conversation with former Border Patrol Chief for the El Paso sector and adjunct professor at the University of Texas, El Paso, Victor Manjares, when we come back. And welcome back to Border Report Live. My name is Rudy Mireles in Harlingen, Texas. But now let me kick it over to our El Paso correspondent, Julian Resendez, to continue his conversation with former Border Patrol Sector Chief for El Paso and adjunct professor in the Criminal Justice Department at UTEP, Mr. Victor Manjares. Julian.
Thanks, Rudy. Mr. Manjares, I'd like to touch briefly on another aspect that has to do with law enforcement, border law enforcement, and the involvement of the cartels. And that is what's happening right now on the field with illegal migration. We know that there's still some encounters here in El Paso. We're down to about maybe 40 encounters per day, perhaps even less. But we know that the cartels are still running stash houses on both sides of the borders. We get the reports of prosecutions, of arrests, and we get the reports from Juarez, Mexico, of stash houses, people in really bad shape being rescued from stash houses. Can you tell us what's going on right now? What are the cartels doing with this part of their business now that the Trump administration has severely shut down the border.
Well, what's interesting now is the with the focus on the border, right? On the and the lower numbers, it's allowed the Border Patrol to do something they haven't been able to do or capable to do the last several years. If you consider what happened the last 4 years, is they had a large number of surrenderees, right? People that would surrender to the local authorities or the Border Patrol to claim asylum. And so when you do that, you're not looking to evade apprehension or detection. You come up to the local Border Patrol agent and surrender. And that was happening downtown. And so what happens to a sector that when that happens is they have to collapse their operations from the flanks. In the rural and urban area or rural and remote areas, they have to come into the urban areas to help process individuals. And it's not just process, it's the logistical tail. You know, you have to transport people, you have to feed them, you have to the look out for them, the care for them. Then you got to process them. You got to make sure that you keep the family groups together. You got to make sure folks that are claiming to be a family are really a family, because you get a lot of false claims to that as well. On that, so you got to collapse your operations. Now, when the numbers are down like they are now, when you're talking about 40 encounters and less, I mean that's incredibly low. The 40 encounters and less. It allows you to expand your operations to go out in areas that you couldn't patrol. And those are the areas that the cartels usually would run their narcotics. So what's causing the cartels now is to look at creative ways to get their narcotics through. So that's why you're seeing an increased number of seizures at ports of entry. And they're usually concealed compartments, or they're with individuals that are carrying narcotics. So you're going to see that. You're also going to see the pricing of to be smuggled in the United States higher. You're going to see the cost of being at a stash house higher. You're going to see stash houses get stacked up in Juarez because they can't move at the same frequency as they did before, but the flow doesn't slow down. They keep on coming up, so they're backed up in stash houses. And so what you see there is the exploitation of the individuals. And that's the bad thing. Most people that are crossing are usually the poorest of the poor. And so they come up there, they sell everything, and they're living on hopes and dreams. And so you get these organizations that exploit the hopes and dreams, and by charging you more and make you bear through conditions that you would normally not accept on that. So we see the border changing quite a bit.
Is it still fair to say that the cartels are still marketing their services down in, especially in southern Mexico, rural Mexico, as evidenced by the profile of the few migrants that are being apprehended?
Oh, absolutely. On that, you remember the cartels is kind of like a big box store, as I compare it, on that, where they sell all sorts of goods on that, and so that's just a revenue stream on that. So you're looking at even when you look at the Jalisco Generation Cartel, they were tapping into the pipeline in Guanajuato, the oil and gas pipeline, and selling it on black market. So anything that they can make money off, a commodity, from the human smuggling to the narcotics to anything intellectual property theft. So this is just a revenue stream. And again, the last 35, 40 years, I've either been involved with this or studied this. He goes, they don't give up a revenue stream unless it's absolutely dry.
You're right. Rudy?
And I do have one question for you, sir. You know, we were talking about what happens when we see that sudden influx of migrants coming to the border, those self-surrenders. With the numbers decreasing now when it comes to encounters at the southern border, we do see the Trump administration trying to hire more Border Patrol agents over the next couple years, especially over the next year, real hard. Do you see that money, as those encounters go down, being better spent on technology to maybe better find the drugs, or is people what the Border Patrol needs at this moment in time?
I think it's going to be a combination of both, but I think the focus is personnel, because personnel provides the greatest deterrence. On that, we don't look at law enforcement as a deterrence, but think of the idea if you're driving down the highway and you see a police officer, what you see is brake lights come on.
Oh yeah,
and it's a form of deterrence. And so when you get Border Patrol agents out there and they look over, it's a form of deterrence. So the cartels will have a couple of options. One is they do it in smaller groups. They take them away from urban areas. And the trick is, if you cross through an urban area, your likelihood of being successful is greater if you're in a cartel, because you can hide in plain sight with the busyness of an urban area. But if you're in a rural or remote area, the risk is higher to being detected and arrested. And so it is a good value. And you look at the numbers of Border Patrol agents have gone down pretty significant, But the focus, if you look at what the Trump administration is doing, it's not only Border Patrol agents, but the greater focus is on ICE agents, and that's specifically for the interior enforcement of those who are already in the country, which we have not had that, well, in the last 35 years. As a chief of a sector in Tucson and El Paso, my hope was to have the whole of government approach. We spoke about it, but it never occurred. So I'm actually seeing this for the first time.
All right. Well, thank you so much, sir. We hate to cut you off, but we are out of time today. Hopefully we can call again on you in the future. And thank you to our El Paso correspondent, Julian Resendez, for this interview today. And we appreciate you at home, too. Thanks for watching. See you all tomorrow.